Hello, I'm Senator Lisa Murkowski, and I'd like to welcome you to this edition of Veterans Spotlight, which is a partnership effort in my office and the Library of Congress's Veterans History Project. This project was created by the Library of Congress back in 2000 as a way to preserve the personal accounts of American war veterans so that future generations may hear directly from veterans and better understand what has happened on our front lines. As we all know, Alaska's relationship with our veteran community is unique. We have the highest percentage of veterans in our population in the entire United States. Our veterans have served with distinction. They have served selflessly, and every single one of them has a story to tell. Veterans Spotlight is our opportunity to listen and learn. We can learn a lot about our country, our state, and ourselves from the men and women who have fought for us and the freedoms that we hold dear. We owe it to our veterans to honor them through sharing their stories, and we owe it to our nation to use their stories as lessons of patriotism, commitment, and service. If you have a parent, a sibling, friend, or a member of your community whose service to our nation should be shared with the nation, I invite you to reach out to me at spotlight@murkowski.senate.gov.
I honestly believe, when I look at the purpose behind the Founding Fathers' decisions to provide freedom for a group of people, it falls to each of us to sustain that. It's our job, it's our duty, it's our responsibility to each other and to ourselves, I think, to take your turn and take your role. And not everyone can serve in uniform, but everyone serves, and I think we all have to do that. I'm not a combat vet. I'm an infantryman of 22 years, and I don't have a combat infantry badge. I think there's a reason for things like this. I've struggled with that a lot, and a lot of my brothers and sisters deal with the why not me thing. And I think I know why not me. I think I have things that I'm supposed to be doing. It's odd enough that the week that I signed out of Fort Bragg to go to Berlin was when Panama happened. And my unit did deploy to Panama, and I missed it. I mean, that long there and that much training and missing it and not getting to go, there was some turmoil with that. When I was in Berlin, the Gulf War happened, and it happened so fast we didn't even have time to respond to it hardly. From the spin up to the execution to the wrap up, I think we wound up sending maybe 4 or 5 people out of Berlin who actually went in theater. Now, a lot of us went to training situations, and we would validate and evaluate the Guard and Reserves to be able to deploy and support. But we had a real-world mission there. It seemed weird. It was odd to patrol your own housing area with live rounds and live ammunition, but it was. But again, my point being, I think all things have a purpose, and it was just weird not to. All that training, all that time, and why in the world am I not? You know, I can play, coach. You need to put me in, and it just never seemed to happen. And so by saying first job, this really is the first job for someone, whether it's for 2 years or 22 years or 30 years. At the end of this, you're just set up to add that much more. And you're doing what the Founding Fathers wanted. You're providing leadership for your community. You're providing guidance and direction. And a warrior is not necessarily someone who's the biggest, the strongest, toughest, and best on the battlefield. A warrior is someone who protects the village, who protects their own and takes care of the others. And by so doing, you're always taking care of yourself. So I guess by first job, my point is, this is just a training exercise. This is what's going to set you up for the rest of your life. And I've been fortunate. I've had some insanely great jobs since I retired because of the things that I learned from my time in service and learned from other people that I served with. With my job itself, I'm fortunate because my job places me before soldiers on a daily basis. I'm the director of operations for an organization called Alaska's Healing Hearts. And we're a federally recognized 501c3, and our purpose is recreational rehabilitation and like social integration. We put people together. We welcome people home. We prepare people to go. We take care of families. We take care of single soldiers. And when I use the word soldier, I mean it as a warrior. All branches of service. We're not committed to one particular branch of service or one component. But we give them a sense of. It's funny. People say, "Well, let's get them back to normal." Everyone has a different normal. My normal and the observer's normal are probably not going to be the same. Happy is a good normal for most everybody. If we can get people to be happy, they'll find their own normal. Normal for a lot of people on 6, 7 deployments. Normal is combat. Normal is not going to the zoo with their children. I don't necessarily know that we need to get them to the known normal. We need to get them to a new normal of happiness. And communication is tough, and that's why we focus on families and significant others and bringing people together, their caregivers, so that they understand you're not in a combat zone. You're not in a threat anymore. We need to get rid of those things. We can't think of those things right now because we're fishing, we're hunting, we're four-wheeling, we're riding horses, we're participating in rodeo. We're going to the zoo, we're going to the movies. Anything that the military service member and their family tell us that they want to do, we create that. We don't create a list of things and say, hey, pick one, we'll do it for you. We don't focus on bike rides or frisbee golf, or we offer those things, but we ask them what they want. And then when they tell us what they want, we provide a format for that. And people laugh, but we sat at this very location in May, and we had a group of 30 some odd people holding hands in the yard behind me. And had I said, let's get together, we're going to have some spiritual time, I would never have had anyone show up. But we had a bear hunt, and we went bear hunting, and we went fishing, and we went trail riding. And in the middle of that, we had some spiritual time where we all just held hands and we talked about our lives, what affected us, what brought us here today, and how we feel today about our time together so far and what's next. And 2 hours later, when we decided to break up, no one wanted to. But I couldn't say that's what we're going to do because no one will be here for it. You have to let those things happen. So we just try to instill a spirit of love and understanding and acceptance. And who cares what you had to do there, because you're not there, you're here. And every great memory that pops into your head takes space up that can't be occupied by bad stuff. So that's what we try to do, and that's why we exist. And we're founded with a sense of community, and a sense of healing, and that's why Healing Hearts, and that's why Alaska's, the apostrophe, it's possessive, it's ours, it's Alaska's, but it's also Alaska is. This land alone is in and of itself just healing. It gives comfort, and it gives some I don't know, some escape from the bad. You can't sit and look at what we see here and be angry for very long. It just goes away. So that's it. That's kind of what I'm fortunate enough and blessed enough to be called to do. I couldn't understand at the time. It made me so mad. I was furious that people that I worked with and trained with and served with were going and I wasn't going. It was partly a selfish thing, but it was also a worried thing. You know, every night to watch the news, and during Desert, or not during Desert Storm, but during Panama, they were publishing, each night they would publish injuries and casualties, and that was pretty traumatic to sit and watch those names and just think, oh man, I hope I don't want to see one of mine. And to own something that's not yours to own. I wanted to own things that I didn't have the right to own. I didn't realize that. That slowly over time come to me. And the only way I could make sense of any of this is that either A, I'm not as well trained as I thought I was, and I'd either kill myself or get someone else killed, or my point in life was not to go to war. My point was to help others who had been. And so I made peace with that and deal with that, and there's a lot of us that deal with that. We had a young man, Max Kavanaugh, and that may ring a bell. The overpass where all the construction's going on Anchorage now, the Max Kavanaugh, Stephen Max Kavanaugh Memorial Bridge there on the old Glen, or the new Glen. Max was at the Warrior Transition Unit, and I took Max and a bunch of guys out fishing in October of 2008. I took the guys out fishing. We went way late in the season, but they wanted to fish. So I took my boats out and we floated down the river with some of the members of the command, the leadership team, and I took a stretch hummer. I had a guy who donated a stretch hummer for us to go pick the guys up, and I thought that'd be kind of cool. And it was a learning point for me. It wasn't near as cool as I thought it was because Max was completely freaked out by being in a Humvee. So he sat scrunched down, his hat was pulled down, and his collar was up, and he was down low, and so we didn't push him, but the commander, he was in the boat with me, and the commander sat with us. And we talked and visited, and he was quietly helpful, but not real outgoing, where the rest of the guys were just laughing and joking and picking on each other. And anytime you see a group of warriors laughing and joking and picking on each other, life is good. Life is really good. And Max was not having a good day. And as we went down Little Willow, maybe 2 miles into the float, someone someone off in the distance had fired a gun, and I thought he was going to come out of the boat. He just really... So we pulled over and we took a break and built a fire and had lunch, and the commander said that Max was actually in a guarded status. He was almost on suicide watch, and this was an attempt to see what would make a difference for him. See if he could come out of his shell. And he was medicated, and he was in counseling. And so I asked the commander if maybe she would ride another boat and just let him be with me. You know, having been a first sergeant, I'm kind of capable of taking care of soldiers, and I know that commanders sometimes can intimidate. So I asked her to ride a boat forward, so she did, and he sort of relaxed a little bit, and I saw that a lot of his pressure came from, he was worried about a performance or a certain level of expectation that he didn't think he could meet. And so anyway, as we moved on, he said, I'd kind of like to fish. So I set him up, and he couldn't cast. That was horrible. And I said, have you ever fished? He said, no, I haven't. At 23 years old, I'd never fished. And I said, well, let's try it. Let me show you how this works. And so I set him up, and he did pretty good. And you know, no one caught fish. It was October. It's too late to catch fish, but we had fun. Anyway, Max fished a little bit. Next thing you know, he's wanting to row the boat, and then he wants to learn how to row the boat, and he wants to learn more. So as we got to the end, I got all the guys on the bank, and I got all the other boats in front of us to the bank, and as I was doing that, holding in place, I sort of lost our position. I got into the current a little bit, and I said, Max, I need you to hold the boat steady because I'm going to walk us in. So I jumped out into the river, and I'm pulling us up current, and next thing I know, Max had put another guy on the oars, and he's right beside me pulling the boat. So from that, we stood wet and laughed and joked while we waited for our ride to come get us. And so every night for about the next 45 days, he was on the phone with me, and we talked about just life. And he wanted to become a guide. He wanted to stay in Alaska. He wanted to learn to become a guide and take people out and do what we did. And during the interim of this whole time, the medications had stopped. He was allowed to move back into his barracks room. Had gone off post, now had time off on his own. Had met a girl, had a girlfriend, had gotten a car, and things had changed in a really quick amount of time. And unfortunately, Max hit a moose, and it didn't decapitate him. It just crushed his skull. So clinically dead. So his parents flew up to see him and had to unplug him. And Max was a donor, a tissue and organ donor, and 4 people were able to benefit. He didn't save any lives, but four people benefited from Max's death through tissue and organ donor. My point to that, Max had been over 300 convoys in his tour in Iraq, and had people shot off of vehicles he was driving, had people shot inside vehicles, and never once had a scratch, not one injury on him. Max was genuinely suffered from PTSD, and his biggest issue was, why not me? He didn't understand why those things could happen, and he could survive them. And for me, I learned so much from Max. I mean, I honestly think that's what I think we were put together for a purpose, to be able to do that for other people. Because in order for me to coach Max, I had to understand why not me. So I learned from Max why not me, because I've got something I need to be doing. And Max had something he needed to be doing, and that's probably keeping hundreds of people alive on those convoys. And I think we're put on Earth with a task list, and once we get it done, we get promoted, and we can move on. But evidently Max had gotten that done, and that's how his parents and I came to peace with that, as an understanding of, you know, Max had obviously achieved everything he was supposed to achieve, he achieved. That we all have a purpose in life, and there's certain reasons I think that we don't get to do things. We don't get to go to war. Still not happy about it. But you know, goodness gracious, if I'd have been killed, I just think of all the things that I've been fortunate enough to be a part of and connect. And it's not me doing it, it's just me being placed in the right place at the right time with the right people to try to do the right things. And if I weren't here, some of those things might not have happened. You know, and it's not just me, we're all that way. I mean, I think everyone that goes ahead of time probably goes on time. We just got to figure out why. What are we supposed to take away from that? And that in and of itself is the nucleus of Alaska's Healing Hearts. It's that acknowledgement of, hey, you did what you did, and you're here. Let's do what's next. Let's do what you're supposed to do. And I think it matters. Heck, I know it matters. Insane numbers of people suffer from that, because as we all sit and we talk and we have our time around the campfire, and we like the the talk in circles. You'll hear that. Start to hear that. You know, we'll have special operators who have been on literally hundreds of missions, and they have that same mentality of everyone who's lost someone. I guarantee you, everyone who's lost someone next to them, not even in combat, is going to ask themselves, why not me? If two people are in a car accident and one dies, the one who's not killed will ask themselves that question. I think that is a lot of the nucleus of PTSD. I think it's not so much the sounds and the sights and the smells, but it's the, you know, there's closure. I can't tell you because I don't have a Purple Heart, but I can tell you that some of the guys that we work with and guys I know that have a Purple Heart, is closure. Hey, I got in the game and I got hit and I kept fighting. No big deal. You don't see the level of PTSD in combat wounded in a lot of cases. And I don't want to generalize that, but my experience, a lot of the guys that I know with Purple Hearts do not suffer the same level of PTSD. I think there's a closure. They realize, hey, I got hit. I survived it. Could have been worse. Could have been dead. A lot of the guys and gals with near misses or in significant events where they survived it seem to have more PTSD because there's not that violence of action. There's not that closure of, it happened. It happened. I dealt with it. I've had some significant injuries in my career. I mean, 17 to 22 years jumping out of airplanes. I broke my neck. I wasn't as scared or nervous or had the shakes near as much as almost being hit by a moose or almost being injured, because there was closure there. There was, hey, I just got nailed, I'm hurt, I'm going to live. Could have died, but I didn't. We proved I'm not going to die because I just got hammered and I didn't die. But near misses seem to shake people up more. You'll see people shake. You'll see people that don't smoke come out of a near car accident and want a cigarette. The whole, I was almost killed. Well, you weren't. Yeah, but I was almost killed. So I think there's some closure to it, and I think there's a lot to that, and that's something that we try to deal with too. That's why we're not exclusive. We serve our battle wounded, battle weary is our motto. Serving our battle wounded, battle weary. There's a lot more battle weary than battle wounded. There's a lot of spouses and kids who are battle weary. They're tired of mom and daddy being deployed. They're tired of separation. They're tired of war. We're all tired of it. We provide for caregivers too. I mean, we have volunteers and other organizations that we invite to come to our events, just to not have to be responsible. You take people fishing every day. Come with us. Let's go 4-wheeling. You don't have to plan anything. You don't have to bring anything. Just show up in your favorite clothes, and I've got everything for you, and you need a break. Those are things that we do to just try to serve the battle weary piece of it. So, yeah, answer your question. There's a lot of people. I think it's an entirely it's not missed, but it's not as widely recognized that we have a lot of people who have a hard time comprehending why in the world did they walk away from something. I used to feel guilty about it. I used to talk to warriors and, where were you? Where did you serve? Where were you at? I never had to. I was lucky. 22 years and during 3 major contacts as a combat armed soldier, and I never once had to go. You know, so I know it healed me. I know for a fact it healed me. That service to my brothers and sisters made me realize that it's not really about me. It doesn't matter how I feel. I'll get over it. Can't help them if I'm feeling bad.